I think about this sort of angle perspective that you need to have an angle to do well in business. And I think about all of the businesses out there built on sort of really simple things that don't necessarily have an angle in any sort of way, that it's just really a thing that they just decided to do. I just went by a mac and cheese store, a macaroni and cheese restaurant. And to me, I'm like, well, that's really nothing to it. That's something that most people have probably grown up eating or making, and it's really simple. It's really actually kind of, it's an inexpensive food. Let's say that. And the challenge when I think about this is like that's not really an angle. And yet I could see that in some markets doing particularly well and doing extraordinarily well. And there's not really an angle with that. And I guess you could just say, hey, it's unique and different, and that gives it its angle, but it's really not in the way that you most people think about these things. And I think about like a lot of things like that, like a lawn mowing business, right? Lawn mowing businesses can do extremely well. Um, there are, there are businesses that are built on cleaning somebody's house or cleaning multiple people's houses, and they do extremely well, like have empires built on that. And I think about all these kind of businesses that are like that, that you would consider, most people would consider as like below them, or, like this is kind of dumb. I think about garbage businesses, right? Like creating garbage business. Or I think about all of the businesses that have done well by doing the food truck thing and turned into really good, you know, long term businesses that have become successful. I think about all these kind of things, and they all come from often very humble roots, and they are not the sort of angle that you might think about, right? The angle is that somebody got up and decided to devote their time for God knows how long to make this thing work, and looked at all of the different people that are coming in, the different customers that are coming in, their desires, and asked them and explored and did all sorts of things to find out what somebody actually wants and what they desire. But they got up and they did this time and time again, over and over and over again, whereas somebody else did not do that, and they gave up on themselves or whatever, right? Like all of those kind of things are very real. And I think about that. Like there is not really an angle with any of these things. I think about these mom and pop places that everybody loves to go to, like um, the spaghetti, where the Italian, the traditional Italian restaurants, that it's just like, somebody's grandparents started this thing and now it's a family business, and it's highly successful and it does well, and, pays the bills for many employees. I think that's a wonderful business that doesn't really have an angle in terms of, what is taught and told. And often the stories to actually get there, the willpower, the desire to get there is more important than any particular angle. I don't think that there is like what I'm talking about, with an angle. I probably should define it so you understand. It's a sort of story that you need a competitive advantage, or you need product differentiation, or something that is unique and different. And I think about like a lot of things are just not that unique and different. They're pretty ordinary, and people do pretty well with them. Um, maybe they're not like, like they're not an IBM, for example, that most people might think about as sort of a successful business, but they certainly are pretty damn well successful in terms of, how you might define it, right? Like somebody that owns one of these spaghetti dinner places, Italian restaurants, they might end up doing so well that, they can afford a nice, beautiful home with marble floors and all this kind of stuff. I would consider that doing pretty well. Or, the laborer that turns themselves into, the boss of a construction company and it becomes a thing, right? And becomes their thing, and they do spectacularly well. I think about these kind of things of the stories I think we're told in the stories that are in business schools, I think are, um, no offense if anybody's listening, but I think are rather elitist, to be honest. I think they're not telling everyday people's stories. They're focusing on the very elite of the elite. And in reality, most of the world is pretty simple. It's pretty ordinary where, somebody is a janitor and they create a janitorial service that turns into something that's okay and does well. I mean, these are the real stories, I think, of people doing real things, and it's not, there's no angle. The angle is they get up and they work and they continuously work, and then every once in a while they might see something that they think works, and they just kind of like are like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and they pursue that thing, and every once in a while one of those things by luck or chance turns into something that is really interesting, that we would consider interesting. I want everybody to sort of realize that the angle perspective of business is, I mean, I just don't, I just think there's too many examples where you can look around and you can find successful people, successful functioning human beings in all walks of life that are doing well, that I would consider that don't have an angle, and I would just consider that they're doing quite well. And I think that is what the ultimate goal of business should be, is to get people to, not only have sort of performance of the business, but, employ people, have people have a decent salary, the sort of really basic kind of stuff that one would think about, that with business from real world perspective, right? None of this sort of corporate world stuff. So I just want people to sort of realize that, right? And then how you evolve into getting that quote unquote angle is that you just keep working at it, and sometimes it turns into something. Sometimes, and to be honest, I don't have a good explanation for why it turns into something, but it just does. And a lot of it, I think, it's just downright experience over and over again of doing the same thing and finding something that is unique or different, or that serves the market compared to what somebody else does. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.